A new noodle bar opened just down the street from my flat. Not only was the food delicious and affordable, but the owner also had an incredibly handsome son who made dining there even more enjoyable. So, as soon as the noodle bar opened, I became a regular customer. I ended up eating there for 3 months straight. That was until my cousin opened a new shop across the street and invited me to come and show my support. But just as I sat down, someone walked out of the noodle bar opposite. He looked at me with a hint of disappointment. "What's this? Do they let customers feel their abs here too?" Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. My cousin, Nathan, had been dating his girlfriend for years. When they were preparing to get engaged, the couple had a falling out, and the girl refused to speak to him. As luck would have it, she lived in the same neighborhood as me. To win back his girlfriend's affections, Nathan pondered for a while and decided to open a noodle bar at the bottom of our apartment building, hoping to create more chance encounters. I thought this was just a lover's quirk. As his cousin and with the new shop just opened, it was only natural for me to show my support. What I didn't expect was that the location of his noodle bar would be right across from the one I frequently visited. So when I walked into Nathan's shop, I felt oddly guilty. After all, I had been eating at the noodle bar across the street 3 meals a day for a solid 3 months. The owner often gave me free side dishes and various perks. The owner and I had developed a deep friendship. Now, switching to a different noodle bar felt almost like a betrayal. But I didn't think too much of it. I walked into Nathan's noodle bar as usual, hearing the automatic welcome at the door. Then I saw Nathan, soaking wet, hurrying out from the back kitchen. It was hot weather, and he was only wearing a thin white t-shirt. Now that he was drenched, the t-shirt clung to his body, becoming almost transparent, with his abs faintly visible. Seeing me arrive, he immediately ushered me to a seat. A pipe burst in the back kitchen, splashing water all over me. The repairman just fixed it. "Since you're here, I'll make you a bowl of noodles first, then go to your flat to change clothes." After saying this to himself, he dived back into the kitchen. Our families have been close since childhood, so Nathan knows my preferences like the back of his hand. Without me saying a word, he knows exactly what kind of noodles I like. I sat at the table waiting, resting my chin on one hand, habitually looking towards the noodle bar across the street. I wondered if he was in today. As I was pondering, a shadow suddenly loomed over me, and then a tall figure walked into the noodle bar. "Justin, what are you doing here?" I asked, feeling a sudden pang of guilt when I recognized who it was. After all, I had been eating at his place all this time, and now being caught red-handed felt rather awkward. His expression remained unchanged, his dark eyes fixed directly on me. "Dad said you were late today. He was worried something might have happened to you, so he asked me to wait for you at the noodle bar entrance." He seemed to think of something, furrowing his brow slightly before continuing. "Then I saw you sneaking out of the neighborhood like a thief, heading straight into this newly opened noodle bar without even daring to look back at me." After saying this, he glanced around Nathan's noodle bar, still with that indifferent look. When this place was being renovated, my dad came over to chat with the owner. He heard that the owner had just graduated from university and has a pretty good physique. I nodded. Nathan had indeed just graduated from university, and being a sports student, he was in good shape. However, wasn't Justin's focus a bit off? Could it be that his cold attitude towards me was because he wasn't interested in women at all? I suddenly felt a wave of despair. But before I could say anything, Justin suddenly changed his previously indifferent demeanor and gazed at me intently. Then he said, "What, does this place also let customers feel the owner's abs?" Justin Fairfax, the son of the noodle bar owner next door. He's incredibly handsome, but his personality is cold and distant. Even though we've known each other for 3 months, I've rarely seen him smile. He's also a man of few words. Many times, I'd be eating while trying to flirt with him using cheesy pickup lines. Most of the time, Justin would remain silent. On rare occasions, he'd sit across from me and ask how he could get me to shut up, saying I was too noisy. In this regard, I'm quite similar to my cousin. I have a bit of a simp love gene. So I'd grin and say, Tell me your name, why don't you? At first, I just wanted to know his name. Later, I wanted to know his height, weight, interests. And most importantly, his relationship status. When I found out he was single, I was over the moon. I unleashed another barrage of cheesy pickup lines. He still didn't pay much attention to me, which made me feel quite discouraged. I even considered giving up on flirting with him. As for the abs-touching incident he mentioned, it was purely accidental. That day, I was having lunch at his family's Noodle Bar, when suddenly an exhibitionist walked in, wearing only his boxers. The exhibitionist made a beeline for me. While I was still in shock, he suddenly grabbed my hand and tried to make me touch his stomach. A big, bulging belly that looked like it was about to give birth. It even had a layer of oil on it. He smiled disgustingly, pressing my hand against his stomach. He said, "Never felt a real man before, have you? Let me show you." Then, he was punched by Justin. I kicked him a couple of times too. After that, the owner called the police, and we handed the exhibitionist over to them. Justin then took me to wash my hands. The disgust made me keep scrubbing my hands with soap. As I scrubbed, I said, "It's so gross, do I need to amputate this hand now?" I was on the verge of tears, with them welling up in my eyes. Justin, who had been silent beside me the whole time, suddenly grabbed my wrist, then lifted his own shirt and pressed my hand against his abs. He asked, "Still feel disgusted?" I shook my head vigorously. How should I describe it? Both hard and soft. Very firm. But also very powerful. At that moment, I completely forgot about the distress caused by the exhibitionist earlier, and tremblingly extended my left hand. Then, trying hard to control my drool, I looked at Justin expectantly. This hand was also grabbed by him earlier. Then, Justin told me to leave quickly, saying he was afraid he might lose control and hit me for being such a pervert. I leaned in closer, "Just hit me gently then." After that, he looked at me even more horrified. In the following days, I continued to eat at his family's Noodle Bar as usual. Perhaps due to the previous incident, the owner felt guilty towards me, so he always gave me generous portions. Moreover, whenever Justin was around, he insisted that Justin sit across from me to protect my safety. Eating noodles while admiring such eye candy was really appetizing. It caused me to gain 3 pounds in just a week. Later, I also mentioned that my hands still hadn't been fully purified, and asked if I could touch his abs again. Justin looked at me with a forced smile. "Sure, help yourself." How could I not be embarrassed? LOL. I immediately put down my chopsticks, excitedly placed my little hand on his abs, and even gave them a little squeeze. He frowned, looking somewhat uncomfortable, but he didn't push my hand away. As if by unspoken agreement. I often tried to test the waters after that, but he didn't agree every time. Usually, he'd only let me touch twice a week, just enough to satisfy a small craving. So when I heard Justin say this, I suddenly had a good idea. I had interacted with my cousin's girlfriend before. She's cute-looking and lively in personality. Most importantly, like me, she has a preference for handsome men. But since she has a boyfriend, she'd at most steal glances on the street. So if my cousin wanted to make her happy again, the simplest method would be to seduce her with his looks, right? But I also know my cousin well. He's a good person, kind-hearted. Just a bit thick-headed. He probably never thought about pleasing his girlfriend this way. Can't be helped. That's why I'm his older cousin. I plan to teach him. Seeing that I hadn't answered for a while, Justin frowned and asked again. Hard to answer? I quickly shook my head. No, I'm not that kind of person. But before I could finish, my cousin walked out of the kitchen carrying a steaming bowl of noodles. His previous clothes were completely soaked through, and the kitchen was hot. So this time when he came out, he had simply taken off his top, wearing only shorts. Everyone understands. This world is just that unreasonable. If it were a big belly, bare-chested and strutting about outside, people would probably curse them as an exhibitionist in their hearts. But if the person is handsome, with six-pack abs, they'd only exclaim in their hearts, My goodness, is this for real? Free eye candy with noodles? But I certainly didn't think that way. After all, he's my cousin, no different from a brother. And he already has a girlfriend, so he needs to maintain his male virtue. So I immediately spoke up, "Put your clothes back on quickly, don't let others see." My cousin put the noodles on my table, then casually wiped the sweat from his forehead, and laughed carelessly. "It's fine, I won't let others see anyway." Then he pointed at an oil stain that had accidentally splashed onto his abs. The surrounding fair skin slightly reddened. "I should put a shirt on, otherwise the oil splashing on the body does hurt quite a bit." I quickly handed him a tissue. The next moment, I heard a voice behind me. "You really do care about him, don't you?" I nodded without thinking. How could I not care? He's my cousin I've grown up with since childhood, I do have to show some sisterly concern. "By the way, Justin." I was about to turn around to introduce my cousin to Justin. But as soon as I turned, I saw Justin leaving with a cold face, without any hesitation. I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. After all, even at his family's Noodle Bar, he didn't like to pay much attention to me. And sometimes when I said too many cheesy lines, he would just turn and leave abruptly. Cold as ice. Watching his back, my cousin also seemed thoughtful. "Kat, don't tell me this is the cold, handsome guy you've been chasing for 3 months without success?" I cupped my face in my hands, blinking with starry eyes. "You don't understand, he's really top tier. His face is top tier. His abs are also top tier. I just don't know if other parts are equally top tier. I'm really too curious." After finishing my meal, I didn't linger. I planned to head straight home. The Noodle Bar my cousin runs doesn't have a shower. So if he wants to wash up, he'd have to close the shop and go home, which takes about 2 hours round trip. That's why he suggested going to my place for a quick shower. "I'm already looking at flats, planning to rent one in this neighborhood," he said. Then, suddenly shy, he added, "Just thinking about living in the same area as Marina makes me blush." When he brings this up, I can't help but feel exasperated. My cousin and his girlfriend have been dating for years, with plans to marry. They've even met each other's parents. Marina had suggested they live together for a while to test the waters. But my cousin refused, saying he felt too shy. The poor girl, being sensitive, didn't dare bring it up again. After being turned down when she took the initiative to suggest moving in together. Now he's struggling to make amends with his girlfriend. All because he completely missed the right choice. After my meal, I walked straight out of the Noodle Bar. But my cousin still had to wait a bit. He needed to wash the dishes and close up, which would probably take about 15 minutes. However, just as I stepped out, I saw Justin standing in front of his family's Noodle Bar. When he spotted me, he strode over. "You usually spend an average of an hour eating. Why did it take over 2 hours today? What, did you have such an enjoyable chat with him?" I nodded. We did have a nice conversation, so I didn't really pay attention to the time. During the meal, my cousin had been gossiping about our family. Apart from my interest in men, gossip is my greatest love. My aunt and uncle are like professional-level gossip collectors. So my cousin knows a lot of family secrets. He's not particularly interested, but he knows I love it, so he shared it all while I was eating. There was so much gossip, and it was so explosive, that the meal ended up taking over 2 hours. Seeing me nod, Justin pressed his lips together, seeming a bit unhappy. Though it wasn't much different from his usual expression. He asked again, "So you're planning to have dinner at his place tonight as well?" I nodded once more. I couldn't help it, the gossip wasn't finished yet. My cousin had even deliberately left a cliffhanger to ensure I'd come back. So I had no choice but to return to his Noodle Bar for dinner, all for the sake of more gossip. Justin's expression grew colder. I assumed he was just worried about losing a valued customer. So I patted my chest, assuring him, "Don't worry, Mr. Fairfax's Noodle Bar is delicious and affordable. It's still my top choice. Going to the one across the street is just for a change of pace." "A change?" Justin suddenly interrupted, his expression caught between a smile and a frown. "Is it the noodles that are new and exciting? Or the person?" I didn't quite understand what he meant. Just as I was about to ask for clarification, Justin spoke again. How did his abs feel? They were all right, I suppose. When we were younger, my cousin and I used to fight a lot. Since I wasn't as strong as him, I'd resort to dirty tricks, scratching him all over. I'd grabbed his abs a few times, they felt pretty good. But I hadn't forgotten that I was pursuing Justin. So I quickly added, but don't worry, his abs are definitely not as nice to touch as yours. Justin smirked. How considerate of you to make a comparison for us. Of course. I patted my chest again, then glanced at the flats in my neighborhood, trying to test the waters. Business was slow at the Noodle Bar today, and your dad can manage on his own. Why don't you come over to my place to watch a film? I recently got hold of a really good horror movie. I've always been brave, loving all kinds of horror films. Many friends who watch with me end up screaming in fear. If I watched with Justin, he'd surely get scared too, and then he'd snuggle up to me. And then, ha ha ha. Wipe that drool off your face. Justin suddenly spoke, interrupting my fantasy. I blinked at him, not giving up, and asked again. Are you sure you won't come? The horror film is really good. He shook his head, still cold. No. With that, he turned and walked straight back to his family's Noodle Bar, without a hint of hesitation. Meanwhile, my silly cousin. He had finished tidying up the shop, locked the door, and was jogging towards me. As he approached, he called out loudly. Watching a horror film? Let's go. I'll come to your place to watch with you. But I need to take a shower at yours first. As soon as he said this, Justin, not far away, suddenly halted in his tracks. But I didn't notice his subtle movement. I just nodded and then said to my cousin. Sure, we've got some snacks and beer at home. We can eat and drink while watching. The moment I finished speaking, Justin, who was about to leave, immediately turned and walked over. He pursed his lips, still wearing that cold expression. You're going to let him watch horror films at your place? And drink with him? This was my little quirk. Just watching horror films can be a bit boring, and besides, I don't get drunk on beer. Eating, drinking, and watching movies is obviously much more comfortable. So I nodded again. Yeah, is there a problem? I don't know if it was my imagination. I felt like Justin's face grew even colder after hearing my response. But before I could examine him further, Justin dropped a whatever and left abruptly. He walked away so quickly. I wanted to chase after him, but I was afraid of being too clingy and annoying him. After all, the internet says you need to learn to play hard to get when pursuing someone. So I suppressed the urge in my heart, and instead beckoned to my cousin standing beside me to come upstairs with me to watch horror films. He decided to take a shower first. Hugging the change of clothes he brought, he went to the guest bathroom, while I prepared snacks and beer in the living room, as well as searched for a suitable horror film. But before I could find one, the doorbell suddenly rang. I went to open the door and saw Justin standing at my doorstep, holding a bowl of noodles. This is a new product my dad developed. He said you're a loyal customer and insisted you should be the first to try it. He pursed his lips, somewhat reluctantly. I didn't want to come, but he made me. Mr. Fairfax has always been very kind to me. And whenever he develops a new product, he always invites me to be the first to taste it. So I didn't find anything strange about his explanation. Happily accepting the noodles, my mind wandered, and I asked again. Do you want to watch horror films at my place? As expected, he refused outright. He even turned to leave. But then, as if remembering something, he turned back to look at me. I think I heard the sound of water running. Nathan is taking a shower, I said, pointing towards the guest bathroom. Justin's brow furrowed even deeper. Katerina, are you sure about this? Sure about what? I didn't quite understand what he meant. Justin closed his eyes briefly, took a deep breath as if suppressing something, then spoke slowly. Do you really want him to watch horror films at your place? Well, there's no helping it, since you won't come, I said, spreading my hands in mock disappointment. Just then, Nathan walked out of the bathroom. He was wearing a simple white t-shirt, paired with shorts. His posture was relaxed as he sauntered into the living room. casually opening a bottle of beer, then tilting his head back to take a big gulp. Hearing the commotion, he turned his head towards the door. "Hey, I know you. You're Justin, the son of the Noodle Bar owner across the street." Justin grunted in acknowledgement. "I know your name too, Nathan." My cousin didn't say anything more to him, instead waving at me. "Katerina, hurry up, the horror film is about to start." "Since you're busy, I won't disturb you," Justin said, not giving me a chance to speak. As soon as my cousin finished talking, he turned and left. I was disappointed. Such a good opportunity, and I couldn't seize it. If only I could have made him stay. Watch some horror films. Have a few drinks. Maybe, I could have seen some other premium sites. Wipe that drool off your face. My cousin's voice suddenly rang out, interrupting my fantasy, which annoyed me. So I picked up a slipper and threw it at his head. He yelped loudly, covering his head and looking at me. "Why are you still so violent, Katerina?" He calls me sis when he needs something, and uses my name when he doesn't. If I had known, I would have beaten him up more when we were kids. He continued, "You're a girl living alone, how dare you give your flat number to other men? Aren't you afraid they might have ulterior motives?" I smiled wryly, slumping onto the sofa. I'd welcome that, actually. I've hinted at it several times before, but he just wouldn't come to find me. I even agreed to just watch horror films. And I promised not to lay a hand on him, but he still wouldn't believe me. Am I really that untrustworthy? Actually, I am. The next moment, I saw the horrified look in my cousin's eyes. But before he could say anything, the doorbell rang again. This time, he scrambled to open the door. "Justin, why are you here again?" I quickly looked over and saw Justin standing at the door with another bowl of noodles, with beads of sweat on his forehead. Though the weather hasn't been particularly hot lately. Probably just runs hot, I guess. Justin spoke. "This is the second new product my dad developed. He wanted me to bring it over for you to try as well." I quickly thanked him, but hesitated. "But I can't finish it all by myself. Mr. Fairfax is really too enthusiastic, but although I'm a foodie, I really can't finish 2 more bowls of noodles after having already eaten lunch." But my foolish cousin didn't feel embarrassed at all. He directly took the bag from Justin's hand, grinning like an idiot. Showing his big teeth, he said, "No worries, if you can't finish it, I'll eat it. I don't mind your leftovers." For some reason, I suddenly felt a chill. I looked up at Justin, but didn't notice anything amiss. He also glanced at me indifferently. Then without saying anything more, turned and left. My cousin sat back on the sofa with the noodles. He opened both bowls and tasted them. The flavors weren't much different, just one spicier and one milder. Just as I was about to continue watching the horror film with my cousin, the doorbell rang again. My cousin and I exchanged a glance, then both walked to the door. We opened it, and sure enough, it was Justin again. He was holding yet another bowl of noodles. "This is my dad's. Mr. Fairfax developed a third new type of noodles?" I finished the sentence for him. Justin nodded, then handed me the noodles. Watching the beads of sweat fall one by one from his forehead, sliding down to his chin. Then from his chin to his Adam's apple, before silently disappearing into his shirt. This sight made me swallow hard, so I couldn't help but ask again. "Look, the two of us really can't finish 3 bowls of noodles. Why don't you do us a favor and join us to watch some horror films? And help us finish 1 bowl while you're at it?" I thought Justin would refuse again this time. But he just pondered briefly, then strode in, saying as he walked, "All right then, I don't want my dad's carefully developed new noodles to go to waste." So, he agreed to watch horror films with me. At this moment, I felt Nathan looked redundant no matter how I looked at him. Originally, I was sitting next to my cousin, with an empty seat on his other side. It wasn't that I was being coy. In fact, I wished he would sit right next to me, preferably in my lap. But I was afraid of scaring him off. So I had to take it slow. What I didn't expect was for Justin to walk over without a word, squeeze himself between my cousin and me, forcing that tiny gap wider, and finally sit down. He was so close, I could feel the pulse in his muscles. I tried hard to control my inner excitement, worried that if I acted too weird, I might scare Justin away. After taking a deep breath, I started the horror film. I had chosen a particularly scary one. Within minutes, Nathan was screaming in terror, nearly diving into Justin's lap out of fear. It was then that I realized my mistake. If only I had known, I could have pretended to be scared and cuddled up to him first. But Justin seemed to dislike being touched by others. As soon as Nathan leaned on him, he shifted closer to me, his eyes clearly showing his disgust. Nathan might not be the brightest, but he could read the room. Realizing he was unwanted, he stood up, wrapped himself in the duvet, and moved to my other side. Just as he sat down, a terrifying ghost suddenly appeared on the screen. Nathan let out a piercing scream, then clung tightly to my arm, too scared to look up. I knew he was a scaredy cat, and he was only watching this horror film to keep me company. So I kindly patted his arm, comforting him like I used to when we were kids. Because of this, I didn't notice the complex expression on Justin's face as he sat beside me. After a while of consoling Nathan, my arm was suddenly tugged. I turned to look, and Justin spoke with a blank face. "Katerina, I'm scared too." He must be testing me. I'd read online that guys prefer more reserved girls, and I had been quite clingy before. So he's probably testing me now, wanting to make sure I can be a reserved girl. After a brief moment of thought, I decisively pulled the duvet off Nathan and tossed it to Justin. Against the backdrop of Nathan's shrieks, I smiled gently at Justin. "If you're scared, you can wrap yourself in the duvet." I actually wanted to chat with him more. But Nathan was so terrified, trembling as he clung to my arm, nearly in tears. I had no choice but to turn back and comfort him. After all, I had stolen his duvet to flirt with the handsome guy. But before I could say much, Justin suddenly stood up. "I have something to do at home, so I'll be going now." He took a couple of steps towards the door, then seemed to remember something and quickly came back to grab Nathan's arm, dragging him towards the exit. "Nathan, my dad said he wanted to discuss some recipes with you. Come with me to the Noodle Bar." The film was far too scary for Nathan, so he nodded without a second thought, even running faster than Justin. Sigh, such a scaredy cat. But afterwards, Nathan told me that after leaving the apartment complex, Justin said he had other matters to attend to and asked him to come back another time to discuss. Nathan was really afraid to come back to my place to continue watching horror films, thinking that since he had already left the complex, he might as well return to the Noodle Bar and continue business. But the main reason he opened this Noodle Bar was to please his girlfriend, so he hadn't forgotten his primary task. The next day, he discussed with me about going to make amends. "You and Marina are close, just find some excuse to get her to come downstairs. And I'll be waiting here with flowers," read the text Nathan sent me, along with the £888 fee. I didn't hesitate at all and immediately got up to find Marina on the 7th floor. Marina is a very nice girl. We've had heart-to-hearts before, and I know her thoughts. She had a quarrel with Nathan because she felt this big dummy was too single-minded. They were about to get married, yet he couldn't understand her hints, making Marina worry if he had some hidden condition. "Katerina, I'm not saying this to complain about him. I'm just afraid he's hiding something and won't tell me. Even if there is something wrong, I could accompany him to the hospital for treatment." Marina sighed, then seemed to think of something and stomped her foot. "That big dummy Nathan, last time I touched his abs, his face turned as red as a beetroot. He said it wasn't proper. Am I not allowed to touch my own boyfriend's abs? If he doesn't make it up to me properly this time, I absolutely won't forgive him." I agreed and planned to have a heart-to-heart with Nathan later. I thought he shouldn't be that clueless. He should understand. Just as I was about to go downstairs with Marina, she suddenly said she forgot her phone and asked me to wait for her at the building entrance. Before I could react, she had already dashed into the lift. But I knew this couple's issues weren't serious, so I wasn't in a hurry. I walked out and saw my dummy cousin waiting at the building entrance. He was holding a bouquet of tulips, Marina's favorite flowers. "Sis, where's Rena?" Marina's family all call her Rena, so my big dummy cousin sometimes calls her Rena too. She forgot her phone. I paused, deciding to help this big dummy a bit. Nathan, Marina isn't really angry with you. But if you still don't understand what's on her mind, you're really in trouble. Some things, sometimes, can we not be so reserved? He nodded, seeming to understand but not quite, then said, I'll do whatever Rena says. Just as he finished speaking, I saw Justin walking towards us from not far away. His expression was still cold as he walked straight up to Nathan. Rena. Nathan frowned, looking unhappy. Who allowed you to call her that? Only I can call her that. He immediately glanced at me after saying this. Having grown up together, I knew Nathan was jealous. Although he's a bit slow, he truly loves Marina. I quickly reassured him, yes, only you can call that. Nathan was finally satisfied and hugged the flowers in his arms again, eyes full of expectation. I want to give these flowers to Rena when no one else is around. What? Am I interrupting your romantic moment? Justin suddenly spoke up, then looked up at me with a complicated expression I couldn't quite read. Nathan nodded without hesitation. Of course you can't be here at a time like this. Don't tell me you have feelings for my Rena? This time, Justin didn't answer, but looked down at the tulips in his arms. Then he looked up at me again. Tulips are poisonous, did you know? I nodded, and he continued, so buy less, and receive less. What a thing to say. I don't even have a boyfriend who would give me flowers. And even if they did, it's just a few flowers outdoors, could they really poison me? However, hearing this, Nathan fell into deep thought. Tulips are poisonous, not good for Rena's health. If only there was something else I could use to make it up to Rena. This lad has finally caught on. I quickly said, to make a girl happy, sometimes you don't need external things. Nathan became interested. What do you mean? I pointed at his abs. Or, you could let her touch your abs. She might be happy with that, you know? Nathan hesitated, that would work? I nodded vigorously. Of course, abs are great. No woman can resist them. Me included. It's just that Justin is too stingy, only letting me touch twice a week. Just as I thought this, Justin suddenly spoke up. Katerina, my dad's asking if you want to go to the Noodle Bar this afternoon. He's specially prepared 2 extra eggs and added chicken for you. Let's go now. I immediately pulled Justin towards the complex entrance. He didn't resist my touch, obediently following behind me. As for my dummy cousin, I've already spelled it out so clearly. If he still doesn't get it, he might as well stay single forever. When we arrived at the Noodle Bar, Mr. Fairfax was very welcoming and immediately went to the kitchen to make noodles for me. Justin sat across from me as usual. He was reading a book intently, and sometimes I would lament that his attraction to me was apparently less than that of a book. It was quite disheartening. Fortunately, Mr. Fairfax was quick, and I didn't have to wallow in self-pity for long before the noodles were served. The fact that I could eat this dish for 3 months straight, without getting bored, was a testament to how delicious it was. I buried my head in the bowl and slurped down several large mouthfuls, completely unaware that Justin had put down his book and was staring at me with a complex expression. Katerina, what's up? I rarely bothered him while eating noodles. Was he not used to it? I felt excited by this absurd thought, but I knew it was impossible. Justin tapped the table, and I reluctantly lifted my head from the bowl. He was looking at me intently as he asked, Do you think Nathan will succeed? Succeed in what? In winning back his dear girlfriend? I nodded decisively. He lowered his eyes, his voice suddenly becoming softer, though I couldn't detect any particular emotion. Are you so sure? I put down my chopsticks and began to analyze the situation seriously. You know, Nathan's face is quite handsome. He's also an athlete with an impressive physique. I reckon if gets a chance to feel those abs, it'll be a done deal. After all, Marina and I were both a bit naughty in that regard. Justin seemed lost in thought. So, just feeling abs would be enough to succeed? I nodded again. In my heart, I was thinking that if I could feel Justin's abs, and that would be enough for us to be together, I'd be willing to do it 10, no, 100 times a day. As I was pondering this, Justin suddenly stood up, walked to my side, lifted his shirt with one hand, and placed my left hand directly on his abs with the other. Wow, the feeling after a week apart was truly exhilarating. I couldn't help but grab them a couple of times. Blimey, I loved it. If only he'd let me have a little nibble, it would be even better. While I was lost in my fantasies, Justin asked, "So if someone else was willing to let her feel their abs, wouldn't that make it harder for Nathan to succeed?" I still had faith in my cousin. So while continuing to feel his abs, I explained, "It won't happen. He'll definitely succeed. Already have a good relationship, and feeling his abs is just the appetizer. When things get passionate, all barriers will disappear, right?" Marina's main concern was probably just worried that my cousin might have some hidden issue. As long as that wasn't a problem, this deeply in love couple would surely quickly walk down the aisle together. So yes, my cousin would definitely succeed. As soon as I finished saying this, he abruptly pushed my hand away. Yes, pushed it away. The feeling experience was far too short. If only I could have another go. I sighed, then sadly picked up my chopsticks and sadly slurped down a couple more mouthfuls of noodles. I must say, Mr. Fairfax's noodle-making skills have improved quite a bit lately. It was so delicious that I even forgot my sadness. I was eating so enthusiastically that I didn't quite catch what Justin said next. He asked, "Does it have to be like this?" I nodded absent-mindedly, and he let out a scornful laugh before falling silent. I wolfed down the rest of the noodles, although I wanted to stay and admire the handsome man some more. At that moment I was more concerned about my cousin's lifelong happiness. If he really messed things up, I was afraid my aunt and uncle would cry enough to bring down the walls of our house. So after finishing the noodles and paying, I prepared to go home. As I was leaving, Justin suddenly ran after me, blocked my path, and said with utmost seriousness, "All right, wait for me." Wait for what? I didn't understand. So I smiled, nodded, said okay, and then headed home, looking back 3 times with each step. As it turned out, my cousin was still teachable. They completed the final step that very day. The young couple's misunderstanding was cleared up, and they happily started discussing their wedding date. When I went to the Noodle Bar to find him, I saw him grinning like an idiot, looking every bit like someone who had fallen head over heels in love. They'd been dating for years, yet he was still acting like a lovesick puppy. How embarrassing. Justin didn't seem busy today either. He was apparently taking a stroll that just happened to lead him to my cousin's Noodle Bar. At that moment, my cousin was talking to me. "Rena and I are about to take the next big step." I was about to offer my congratulations when Justin walked in, frowning as he asked, "What big step?" My foolish cousin, newly reconciled with his girlfriend, was in such high spirits he was beaming at everyone. He immediately replied, "Why, Rena and I are about to tie the knot, of course." After saying this, he became all coy, eventually even covering his face with both hands and burying his head on the table, giggling like a schoolgirl. It was truly a cringeworthy sight. Justin's expression remained unchanged as he said, "Until you're married, anything can happen. There are always unexpected twists. What if she meets someone better and decides she doesn't want you anymore?" Those words were like a match to a powder keg. My cousin immediately stood up, puffed out his chest, and said with utmost seriousness, "Justin, what rubbish are you spouting? What do you mean if she meets someone better? I'll have you know I'm quite the catch. Rena has said so herself. Good Lord, men in love are truly unbearable to watch." I covered my face and lowered my head in embarrassment, so I didn't see Justin's devastated expression. By the time I looked up again, he had already left. Someone's new love experience meant they couldn't wait to close their shop before dark. So I went to Mr. Fairfax's Noodle Bar as usual. Justin didn't seem to be around, so I didn't dawdle over my noodles, eating at my normal pace before preparing to leave. But just as I walked out the door, Justin called out to me, "Katerina, it's getting dark. My dad asked me to walk you home." Blimey, my future father-in-law is too kind. I nodded vigorously and walked beside him towards home. Though we'd walked this path countless times, for some reason this time, I felt like the street was filled with pink bubbles. But Justin was still Justin, barely talking to me the whole way. Until he escorted me upstairs to my front door. I thought he would leave right away. Instead, he said, "Since I'm here, fancy watching a horror film?" That sounded great. I immediately went to find a film while he sat on the sofa, lost in thought. "What's wrong?" I asked. He frowned, asking seriously, "Should we have some drinks?" "That's not a good idea." I shook my head without thinking. What if I got drunk and, overcome by his good looks, pounced on him right there? How embarrassing. So, I quickly got up to grab some drinks. Not just beer, but some whiskey too. I was worried he'd be angry. But he just glanced at the bottles and gestured for me to pour. I didn't dare pour too much. Afraid he couldn't hold his liquor and would pass out after one glass. I controlled the amount carefully. Then I began my brilliant acting performance. As soon as the horror film started, I started shrieking and yelping, conveniently falling into his arms. I don't know why, but this horror film seems especially scary today. That's why I can't help snuggling into you. You're not upset, are you? Blimey, nestled in Justin's arms, my right hand casually felt his abs. It was just too amazing. But I didn't dare go too far, just testing the waters a bit. Though he didn't resist, I put both hands on him, squeezing gently. So firm and bouncy. He still said nothing. So I got bolder, curling up entirely in his arms. After all, we'd been drinking, and I wanted to do something more daring. I looked up, and hearing the movement, he looked down. Already in his arms, this brought our lips less than 2 inches apart. If only I could kiss him. I hardly dared imagine. Actually, I forgot whether I made the first move or he did. But I figured a cool, aloof guy like Justin definitely wouldn't initiate a kiss. So it was probably me, tipsy from the alcohol, who pressed my lips to his. How to describe it? Electrifying. Earth-shattering. We kissed, we rolled around, clothes came off, and we made love. It turns out this kind of thing is nothing like how novels describe it. It was my first time, but it didn't hurt at all. And there was no bleeding either. Maybe I just have a good constitution. I didn't think much more about it. After all, at a time like that, enjoying the ultimate pleasure is what matters most. In the end, all I can say is, he truly was top tier in every way. After a wild night, I woke up pondering how to phrase it. Planning to make a scene and threaten to end things dramatically. To force him to take responsibility for me. The experience was just too good to let go. 3 times wasn't nearly enough, was it? But before I could start my performance, Justin spoke first. "You need to take responsibility for me." What? Responsibility? I couldn't help but look up at the ceiling. When did the heavens start dropping such blessings? Or had my ancestors' graves started smoking? I made a mental note to call my grandparents later to ask them to check if the family graves on the hill behind their house were actually smoking. As for the present moment, I nodded without hesitation. "Don't worry, I will definitely take responsibility for you." Hearing this, the corner of his mouth curved into a faint smile. He was about to reach out and hug me when he seemed to remember something. "Katerina, what about the thing with Nathan? Is that still going ahead?" How did he know I was supposed to help my cousin propose to Marina today? The decorations downstairs in the estate should all be set up by now. I had almost forgotten. So I immediately sat up, hurriedly putting on my clothes. "What's wrong?" he asked. As I dressed, I replied, "He's planning to propose downstairs today." I almost forgot about it. I need to get there right away. As soon as I finished speaking, Justin, who was sitting on the bed, also got up. He grabbed my wrist, his expression strained. "You just slept with me, and now you're going to see Nathan?" I was confused. What's the connection between these two things? You don't think there's a problem? He laughed, but the smile didn't reach his eyes, making him look rather scary. Still, I nodded. There really isn't any connection. What happened between us is our business. What's happening with him today has nothing to do with that. Hearing my words, Justin suddenly let go of my hand. He gave me a long, hard look. Katerina Fox, you're something else." With that, he turned and left. I stood there stunned for a moment, then began to howl at the ceiling. Bloody hell! What a scoundrel! Sleep with me and run, will you? Ugh. I still wanted more. But heaven didn't hear my plea. And my silly cousin's incessant calls forced me to put aside the matter with Justin for now. To help him complete today's proposal ceremony, I changed my clothes and went downstairs. Then sent a message to Marina as planned earlier, saying I wanted to go shopping with her today and help a friend catch a cheater. Those in the know understand that even if Marina is just watching, she needs to have presence, so full makeup is a must. And it has to be the most exquisite kind. After doing this, I went straight downstairs. The community had already been decorated, with pink bubbles everywhere. There was still some time before the ceremony began. I would need to guide Marina to my cousin later. So I was familiarizing myself with the process along this path. Suddenly, a large hand grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a big tree. Who? Justin? I was stunned for a moment when I saw who it was. But he held my hand, his eyes pleading. Please don't go, will you? I shook my head. This is very important today, I can't not be there. He lowered his gaze, gripping my hand even tighter. All right, I can accept that you want to, but I must be the main one. And only my name can be on the marriage certificate. Of course, only his name would be on my marriage certificate. That's what I've been wishing for. Wait, what does he mean by must be the main one? Do I have a secondary one? Seeing that I wasn't saying anything, Justin suddenly pulled me into his arms, his voice sounding very hurt. At first, it was you who insisted on flirting with me. Wanting to know my name, then wanting to know all my information. And telling me those terribly cheesy pickup lines every day. Well, it was because I had no experience. So I planned to learn online, but ended up taking quite a detour. But I don't know why, even though those pickup lines were really cheesy. They still made my heart race. Then I didn't dare look at you, afraid you'd see my face turning red because of you. So, he had fallen for me long ago? That time when you were almost bullied, I was truly angry, and also very scared afterwards. That's when I realized I had really fallen for you. But you ungrateful girl, I was afraid you wouldn't cherish it if you got it too easily. So I only let you touch my abs twice a week. That's a privilege others can't even dream of. That's true, others get side dishes with their noodles, I get to touch abs with mine. What a bargain! Later, Nathan showed up. I admit he has abs too, but they're definitely not as well trained as mine. And for other skills, I'll learn and study, guaranteed to be better than him. Hold on, what's there for you two to compare about this? So, Rena, please don't accept his proposal today, all right? Even if you want to accept mine first. He can only be the secondary one. Justin sounded more and more aggrieved. It was the first time he had fallen for a girl, but she turned out to be a player. He really wanted to cry, but he had to hold it in. Otherwise, he was afraid that ungrateful Katerina would think he wasn't as manly as Nathan. And I, having heard all this, suddenly realized something. Just as I was about to explain, a thunderous applause suddenly erupted from the proposal site not far away. Justin and I looked over simultaneously, only to see Nathan and Marina kissing. Justin's eyes widened in disbelief. I, however, couldn't help but laugh, then started to explain to him. Justin, is there a possibility that Nathan is actually my cousin, the kind with blood relations? So, the proposal he mentioned was with another woman? What else? I stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips. After all, I only love you. From our first encounter, it was love at first sight, never to be changed.